Hello Toy Collector fans, Universal Toy Collector here and welcome to the channel. And welcome to another episode of My Collecting Life, the series where I get to speak to you, members of the toy collecting community, about your own personal collections, finding out what got you into collecting in the first place and what gives you that toy collecting buzz. So who do we have on this episode? Let's find out, shall we? Let's have a look at some of his collection in a musical montage. Okay, so wow, yet again, another fantastic collection. And it's a busy collection. There are loads of different toy lines in there. Absolutely phenomenal. It's my pleasure to welcome Carl to the channel, also known as Gojitron. Hello, sir. How are you?
Hello, Stuart. I'm doing well. How are you?
Oh, yeah, I'm absolutely delighted that you could join me this evening. Thank you so much for taking part. Again,
Absolutely.
very much appreciated.
Very excited to be here to talk to you about our mutual love, which is, of course, musical theater. We're going to cover the Phantom of the Opera, Les Miserables. It's a joke, folks. It's just a joke. Don't click off the channel. We'll do the toy thing you're looking forward to. It's fine.
Yeah, that might be another conversation, guys. But yeah, so you've seen the series, you know the score. I've got 10 questions for you. It is all about you. I'll pop in and say my piece every now and again, other than asking you questions. So let's get started then. First question: what are your childhood memories, and what toy lines were you into?
Okay. Well, I brought props for this section, and let me preface this by saying that everything I have here is either a reproduction, a reissue, or a modern version of some vintage toy. My vintage collection was sold many, many years ago, so I've sort of recreated it with modern toys that you see behind me. So the first memory I have is of this guy, Captain Action. So he was created in 1966 by Stan Weston, the same gentleman that created G.I. Joe. This was made by Ideal Toys to be a competitor for G.I. Joe. And the deal with Captain Action was, instead of having different military outfits, he would have different costumes that he could change into to become popular comic book and comic strip superheroes of the day. So he could dress up as Captain America, Batman, Flash Gordon, the Lone Ranger, so on and so forth. Yeah, so this is the first action figure I had. I believe the original one I had was a hand-me-down from an older cousin, because this figure came out before I was born. I was actually born in the late 1960s, so my childhood is the 1970s. So I'm going to take you through a little tour of what I played with in the 1970s.
No, please do. Awesome. The screen is yours, my friend.
Yeah. So after Captain Action, we get to the G.I. Joe Adventure Team. And by the time I was playing with G.I. Joe, he had transitioned from his military beginnings due to the feeling about the military in the United States at that time, and he had become an adventurer. So he would go on world travels, hunting different animals or getting into different adventures, searching for stolen idols, things like that. So I had several G.I. Joe Adventure Team figures. I had the helicopter vehicle, the headquarters playset, and things like that. So this was the first actual action figure that I received when I was a kid. That wasn't a hand-me-down. I remember opening the Search for the Stolen Idol set one Christmas. Yeah.
Awesome.
So after G.I. Joe, I discovered superheroes in the mid-1970s. First through Saturday morning cartoons like Super Friends, and there were also a lot of programs in syndication at that time, like the Adam West Batman series that I know a lot of people our age love. Those television shows brought me to comic books, and I've had a love of superheroes ever since then. So the next big toy line that I got into in the 1970s was Mego's World's Greatest Superheroes. And this was probably my first big line to collect. I had all but 5 of these figures when I was a kid. So I had about 30 different superheroes. And the great thing about Mego Superheroes at the time was that Mego had the license to both Marvel and DC figures simultaneously. Back when they weren't owned by big entertainment corporations, they would play nice together. So I had Batman, Superman playing with Spider-Man, the Hulk, and Captain America, all in the same scale, the same style, which was great if you were a kid back then. You could have all your superheroes playing together, and not like it is now where McFarlane's doing 7-inch and Hasbro's doing 6-inch, and they don't meld. Back then, everyone played nice together, so you could have everyone in the same playtime.
Awesome.
After Mego in the late 70s, we went simultaneously smaller and bigger. So with smaller, first it was the Micronauts from Mego.
Okay.
And these were originally adapted from a Japanese toy line called Microman. So the great thing about Micronauts was that they had a variety of interchangeable parts where you could take parts from figures, vehicles, play sets, and build new toys out of them. So this was a great toy line in the 70s. Did well for a few years, but didn't really last into the 80s.
Okay.
And bigger, we had the Shogun Warriors.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So these, the original Shogun Warriors were put out by Mattel, and they were licensed from a Japanese company called Popey. And the Shogun Warriors were made up of characters from different anime super robot series in Japan. And Mattel took all those characters, made one, tried to make a cohesive toy line out of them. So I had several of those bigger. They came in a variety of sizes, but I had mostly those bigger 24-inch size Shogun Warriors. They had firing fists, firing missiles, weapons that popped out, and they were awesome to take outside because they were made of a virtually indestructible plastic. So you could really play with them. And I had several of those. And so the last great toy line of my childhood is one that you should be quite familiar with. And of course, it's these guys.
Indeed.
So, Christmas 1978, I remember getting the Land Speeder TIE Fighter, Darth Vader TIE Fighter, X-Wing, the Land of the Jawas playset, and the Death Star playset.
Wow.
And of course, I had the original 12 figures by that time. So 78 was my big Star Wars Christmas. And that was probably the last great toy line of what I consider my childhood years.
Okay, wow. So
And,
that is quite an extensive list that you've got there. I mean, a lot of the things that I've never heard of. I mean, I was like mid-70s, so I kind of like had the I suppose early 80s, mid-80s growing up. So those toy lines I didn't hear of. Obviously Star Wars, as you know. But out of all those toy lines that you had as a kid, surely you must have had a favorite. So which was your favorite toy line at that time, or did you chop and change as it when it suited?
Yeah, I changed as it went along. I mean, first it was Mego Superheroes.
Yeah.
But then when Micronauts came along, I was fascinated with the Micronauts, not only the toy line, but the Marvel comic as well, because back then there weren't any cartoons to tie in with the toys. It was mostly no tie-in media at all, or you got a comic book. So I really was fascinated with the Micronauts comic book as well. And then, of course, Star Wars came along and blew the doors off the whole industry. And, you know, every kid at that time was fascinated with Star Wars.
So Star Wars basically put pay to kind of everything else at that time.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that's why today I love so many different sizes, scales, and types of toys, because I saw the industry standard change from 12-inch to 8-inch to 3 3/4-inch during the course of my childhood in real time, plus the introduction of Japanese toys into the U.S. market at the same time.
Yeah.
So I kind of saw the evolution of the industry during my childhood. And I think in a lot of ways, the 70s sort of set the table for the 1980s and what was to come. Because the 70s was sort of proof of concept that all these different styles of toys could coexist and have varying degrees of success together.
I mean, the thing is, I mean, Star Wars kind of changed the rule book with action figures, because it being 3 3/4-inch, it made it more. You had more playability. You could do better world building with it, couldn't you? Whereas I suppose with the 12-inch GI Joes and the figures you showed there, some of those were quite big, and you couldn't get the ships for them and stuff like that. I mean, I remember the Action Force or the GI Joe tank. It was quite big. So I guess that was kind of revolutionary for the time, where you could get all these ships and stuff like that. No, they weren't to scale, but it gave you that opportunity to actually get the ships and build the world within
exactly, yeah.
Like that,
yeah. 3 3/4-inch is a much more versatile scale when you're talking about vehicles, play sets, etc.
Yeah. So when did you realize then that you became a collector?
I've always had a collector mentality. Even when I was a kid playing with my toys, whenever they got broken or soiled, I hated it. So if a Mego figure broke a leg, I'd do my best to repair it. If their cloth costumes got soiled, I'd undress them and wash them in the sink and try to get them clean again, hang them out to dry, and then redress them. So I've always had this idea that I wanted my toys to be in as pristine a condition as I can get them, even though I played with them. So I think in a way I always had that collector mentality. But I think what the line that really created the adult collector in me was The Empire Strikes Back. Because in 1980, I was turning 13 years old.
Okay.
Too old to play with toys. Too old to play with toys. We know that's a lie. But I still wanted the toys. And by that time, I was taking my childhood toys and I was setting them up in shelves all around my room for display. So when The Empire Strikes Back came out, of course, those were fantastic figures, the play sets, the vehicles, the whole Hoth scene. So I still bought those toys for the purposes of just setting them up and displaying them.
Okay.
So I've been doing a version of this for 42 years now.
Wow. That's phenomenal. That is phenomenal. I mean, and what I love it, because we get onto your channel in a minute, but such an extensive knowledge of the figures and stuff like that. I mean, you really do your homework and your research on these things. I mean, like I say, because we get to, like I said, we get to your channel in a minute, but so most of your research, did you do that by comic book back in the day? Because when I see you and you say, right, so this figure, he was first introduced into Marvel Comics at issue number 4. I mean, it just blows me away listening to that. I mean, do you
yeah, I mean,
memorize
I
that,
have.
or do you...
Yeah, I'm not an expert in anything. I have a good general knowledge of things, but when it
Yeah,
comes to things like making videos or even Instagram posts, I will go and I will do the research. So when I
yeah,
do a video, I don't have a script per se, but I have notes with all the talking points I want to hit. And I want to make sure those facts are accurate, because nothing annoys me more than, watching a live stream on certain other channels, and the guys will be saying, "Oh, I think it was released here, and I think it was made by this," and I'm watching them and saying, "That's all wrong. That's completely wrong." I don't want to be the guy that's wrong. And of course, as we know on the internet, if you're wrong about the littlest detail, some
yeah,
some pedantic pissant is going to come out of the woodwork and say, "Oh, that episode was not released on September 13th, 1983. It was released on September 14th, 1983. You're wrong."
yeah,
So,
yeah.
and who wants to deal with that nonsense?
I get
So
that.
I do my research. I try to get my facts as accurate as possible. So I don't have all this knowledge in my head. I have the general knowledge in my head of
Yeah.
the timeline of when things came to be, but as to the finer details, I do like to look things up and research. And the
No,
internet is great for that.
yeah, it shows. I mean, wow. I mean, we're getting to your channel now. So what made you want to do a YouTube channel, and who were your influences?
My friends, basically.
No,
When I started doing building this collection again back in
yeah,
2019, that's when I started going onto YouTube and just watching the different, retro toy channels. And I started out with the
yeah,
bigger channels, of course, like Retro Blasting, Analog, Michael
yeah,
Mercy, so on and so forth.
yeah,
But what really got me inspired to do a channel was guys like Chris Miwa and Scuba
yeah,
Pete and Bob Hansen and Dave C. and my friend Salvator from 2 Cents Toys and my friend Grindhead Jim and all these
yeah,
guys who were just out there doing it because they love it.
yeah,
And I was looking around and saying, I'm a little older than a lot of you guys. I have, knowledge of things that happened before the 80s that I could connect
yeah,
to the 80s and then connect to modern toys as what I do on my channel. So I thought I had a little bit of a new perspective, and I could bring a little something new to the table. So that's why I started the channel, just inspired by my friends and just to have fun. I don't expect to get monetized. I don't expect to open a Patreon or anything like that. I'm
yeah,
just going to do it as long as it's fun for me to do it.
yeah.
And as long as there's a few of you that are watching and commenting and liking, I'll keep doing it.
Well, listen, I think you've got a fantastic channel, and like I say, your knowledge
Hey,
and it just does blow me away. I'm sitting there, because obviously there's a time difference between our two countries, and I sit there on a Saturday morning or whenever, just watching, like, catching up on some channels and stuff like that, and I come across, watch your videos, and I just sit there, and it puts a smile on my face, because I'm thinking, wow, this guy is either very, very knowledgeable and he's got a bloody good memory, or he really does do his homework and he does do his research, and it shows. You can tell it shows. I mean, even to the smallest detail, and everything that you review is just wow, because you know so much about that character. You knew what comic they're in, and it is remarkable. So I take my hat to you for that, sir.
I
Absolutely
appreciate that.
brilliant. Absolutely
Appreciate
brilliant.
that.
Me,
That's what I like to hear. That's what keeps me going, is comments like that, and
no,
that's the fuel for my fire.
I wouldn't say it if I didn't mean it. I mean, everybody that I've spoken to on this series so far has been inspiring in one way or another. You all have your different ways of doing things and stuff like that. And yeah, I do. I generally have a lot of time and respect for you guys that are doing the reviews and stuff like that. I wouldn't do a review. It's not my thing. It's not my thing. I like chatting to people. That's why I do this series. I do figure openings and displaying and stuff like that. And then I'm obviously doing these walk and talk things as well. I've done a recent video which will be out Monday, and it's basically about the 50th anniversary lines, because I know that you said you liked a couple of the 50th anniversary figures, the Luke and the Han, and you didn't realize
Right.
they'd done
Yep.
them. So I've
Mm-hmm.
taken that on board, and I thought, well, okay, I'll show the whole line. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not reviewing the figures. I'm just showing you the figures, and obviously just
Right.
like showing you the cards and all the details. But
Mm-hmm.
there are so many people out there that are doing figure reviews, and I think they would do a far better job at it than I would.
Mm-hmm.
I'm lazy, but I wouldn't go into all that like detail. I don't have the time to. Not saying that you do, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm just lazy. It's as
Yeah.
simple as that.
Everybody has what they like, and everybody sort of
Yeah,
takes time to find their own niche. And
yeah,
you've taken time to find. I think your niche is doing the interviews and doing the chats
yeah,
and the live streams with Scuba Pete. And this is what you're good at. And if you like doing this, just keep doing this. And you are doing well. And I've seen your interview style evolve over the course of the episodes you've already
oh,
done.
thank you.
And
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
do what you
I just
love.
like talking to people. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Don't worry about that. So, talking about your channel as well, are you ever sort of like in the mind of doing different content? Or are you quite happy sticking to doing what you do? Would you venture off and do other bits just every now and again?
I have a notebook full of ideas, and I probably have 100 ideas written down.
Mm,
So right now, it's just been really heavy with new toys coming in that I want to review. So that's
mm,
why I've been putting out 2 to 3 videos a week to get toy reviews done of the new products that are coming in. Eventually, I will peter off, and I have other ideas that I want to get to, such as
mm,
histories and retrospectives and
mm.
different toy and character profiles, things like that. So yes, it's
Yeah,
not all going to be toy reviews all the time. It's just that this time of the year, every year, even during the pandemic, it seems that
yeah,
fall every year, there's a deluge of new toys. And I've been getting all kinds of pre orders in lately that I want to sort of do. And I kind of changed up a little bit where I'm not doing so much single figure reviews, but I'm
yeah.
doing these new videos where I take 2 figures and I compare them. And I've got a few more of those coming down the pipe. So instead of just looking at 1 figure, I'm going to look at 2. I'm going to pick my favorite, and then I, leave it up to the comments. What do you think? Do you guys agree
Mm.
with me? And that sort of thing.
So with your reviews, do you prefer reviewing the older style toy, like the vintage toys that you have, or do you prefer reviewing the newer lines, newer toy lines and figures?
Both, both really. I have
Yeah,
no
you don't
preference.
have a preference.
I mean,
Yeah,
if the new stuff stops coming in, I may go to these shelves and get a video idea for something that came out 5 years ago and make a video about that. So wherever the inspiration strikes me, that's where I go.
sure. So what do you think of a lot of these new lines that are coming out, like the classified GI Joes, the Black Series Star Wars, the Vintage Collection Star Wars, the Origins Motu, and stuff like that?
There's a lot of wasted potential in some of these lines,
Mm,
and I'm seeing a dip in quality. Especially, I'm a big Transformers fan. I'm seeing a
yeah.
big dip in quality in Transformers, and of course the price increases we all know about.
Mm,
So the value versus money aspect of collecting modern toys is not great right now.
yeah.
And I think in something like the Star Wars Retro Collection, they have focused way too much on the Disney content,
Yeah.
and they have all those classic figures that they could go back and reissue. They could take characters that never got figures in the original Kenner line and
Yeah.
issue those in
Yep.
the original Kenner style.
Yeah.
People would go nuts for that stuff if they could get in a I know guys like Stan Solo are doing their thing, and other makers are
Yeah.
doing those type of custom figures. But I
Yeah.
think a wide release line, if Hasbro wanted to do it, would do really well. But for some reason, they're sort of stuck in a rut where they're going to do, with the Mandalorian, Obi-Wan, and who knows, they'll probably do some for Andor. I'm not even looking forward to watching that. I don't care about Andor.
Fair enough. No, that's okay. So the thing is with the retro collection, I didn't mind it as a one-off. Like you had the 6 figures, and then it would have been nice if they'd have done wave 2 as the next 6 figures, then gone on to the Empire Strikes Back and sort of released them because you got the 25th, the 40th anniversary Return of the Jedi figures coming out next year, and they're going to be obviously they're going to have retro style figures as well. It would have been nice if they'd have just kept it at that. And I know people say, well, there's room for both, and retro is in the style of it, doesn't have to necessarily be retro. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just a bit old fashioned and would have just preferred it as the original trilogy figures released on those cards. I mean, they've done a great job, haven't they, with the retro GI Joe with the cards and the figures, the O-ring figures now. I mean, have you got any of those?
No, I don't do the O-rings. I have some of the so-called retro collection GI Joe, which were reissues of the 20th anniversary line or the 25th, whatever it was. I have those, but I'm not going back and getting O-ring figures. They're like what, $20 each now, something like that for the O-rings. So
did you not have those as a kid?
No.
So no.
Yeah. In the 80s, I was a bit older, so I focused on mostly Transformers in the 80s. I was a Transformers completist. All through Generation 1, I bought every figure. And beyond Transformers, it was Masters of the Universe, Thundercats, things like that. So I really didn't focus a lot on G.I. Joe just because there was no money left over after I bought those other lines to get into other things. Things I did focus on in the 80s were the clearance aisles at Toys R Us and Child World and things like that, because so many different lines cycled through the mid 80s that they would be new and then go on clearance 6 months later. So a lot of my vintage collection from the 80s was bought on clearance, and that's how I would collect back then. It was an affordability thing.
Yeah, for sure. And I find it fascinating and interesting to see that you've got toy lines like Motu coming back with the Origins and the Revelations figures. You've got things like G.I. Joe coming back strong again. The classified, they're finally getting those figures right after, I think, what was quite a poor start with how the figures looked. And then you've got the retro line coming in. Now, originally the retro line was just the 25th anniversary, and then people were kind of upset because they weren't O-rings, and now they're starting to listen and do the O-ring figures again. And then also you got Star Wars, which has, I guess, really never sort of gone away. And then I guess you can factor in like things like Transformers and Turtles and stuff like that. It's very rare that I've seen a new toy line. I think Valaverse and their Action Force line, I think they're the only sort of like real new sort of like toy line other than the big so-called toy lines that were in the 80s that are around today. I mean, it's very, I don't know about you. What do you think about that?
The toy industry is stuck in the same rut as the movie and television industry. It's just a constant stream of remakes and nostalgia. Yeah. And they're obviously, the entire toy industry right now is focused on us, Generation X. They want our disposable income as adults. That's why we keep getting, all the properties from the 80s back again. It's just, a constant stream of, wash, rinse, repeat. Especially with things like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. There are something like 8 different toy companies making Ninja Turtle figures right now.
Oh, no,
no one needs that many Ninja Turtle figures. So I don't know how sustainable this current toy industry business plan is, because with the prices keep going up, if we lose interest because of the lower quality and the lack of distribution and the higher prices, they really have no place to go. There are no new properties that they've been innovating. It's just been a constant stream of the same stuff.
Yeah. I find it remarkable that no one has come up with because I mean He-Man was just that was created as well as like, I mean, G.I. Joe, you had the comics and stuff like that, but I just find it remarkable that there's no real sort of like new toy line that is going to be in 40 years time where kids are going to or collectors are going to be clambering after that. I can't see it at the moment. I really can't.
Yeah, there's nothing.
No,
I don't think anyone's going to be clamoring for Fortnite retro figures in another 40 years. I really don't.
No,
or Halo or anything like that.
Yeah, it's baffling. Anyway, moving on. Do you have a grail piece? Is there one piece in your collection that you would want above anything else?
In my current collection, or something I don't have?
No, something that you don't have.
Between my vintage collection and this one, I've owned so many grails. But the one thing I'd love to have back that I sold many years ago for a much lower price than it's going for now is the Kraken from the Mattel Clash of the Titans line.
Oh, wow.
Because
Okay.
I'm a huge fan of Ray Harryhausen films. I don't know if you're familiar with Ray Harryhausen.
Yeah.
He was
Yeah.
the stop motion special effects master that influenced so many of the modern filmmakers like Lucas and Spielberg and Peter Jackson. And there was really only one toy line ever made from a Harryhausen film. He did 22 films, but the only toy line they ever made from one of his films was Clash of the Titans in 1981, which was his last film. So I would love someone to go back and do proper toy lines based on those Harryhausen films. I mean, they've done vinyl figures of the different creatures and things like that, but I'm talking about a toy line with the hero and villain figures along with the monsters, something that you could really play with. And the only thing they've ever done like that was Clash of the Titans. And the Kraken from that line was a beautiful toy. He was about 16 inches tall, and but he was very fragile. And these days, to get a Kraken in good condition would cost about $800 to $1,000, I'd say.
Wow.
So I'd love if one of these companies that's doing these retro style figures would go back and get the license to do Ray Harryhausen films and make some proper figures of those films.
Because he did the did he do the Sinbad films, The Eye of the Tiger, and did
the Sinbad trilogy,
and,
Jason and the Argonauts.
That's that's another one. Yeah, and I think
all classic.
Yeah, definitely.
He also did the effects of the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, which was one of the things that inspired the creation of Godzilla. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there was a very similar kind of creature in the Book of Boba Fett. I know you probably don't think too much of that series, but they did something very similar. Very Harron. I can't even say his name.
Harryhausen, yeah.
Harryhausen.
Yeah.
They did something quite similar to that in the Book of Boba Fett, which
that four-armed stand creature you're talking about.
Yeah. And I don't think it fitted. I don't think it fitted in the in today's in the series. But there you go. Anyway, what is your most prized part of your possession? So if you had to, here we go. Oh, of course.
This big fella.
Wow.
So this is a new version of my favorite childhood toy, which was the Shogun Warriors Godzilla.
Okay.
And when I decided to start collecting again in 2019, this guy was the first stone in the foundation of what has become this.
Okay,
so
wow.
He's going to be the first one in and the last one out.
Wow. That is yeah. So again, I've never even seen that. So do you have many Godzillas? I've never seen that figure, but I know of Godzilla.
Yeah.
But I mean, do you have many Godzilla figures?
I do. Yeah. I have. Looking around, I probably have about 20 different Godzillas, and then all the various other monsters that are his friends and enemies. So I have about 60 to 70 different kaiju figures.
Wow.
Is what the proper terminology would be.
Yeah. So I'm assuming that back in the day, or with the current Godzilla films at the moment, you definitely are very much in the classic line. You prefer those to the modern films. Yeah. What did you make of the modern films?
They're fine. Yeah, the ones from Legendary. I really enjoyed Godzilla King of the Monsters, which came out in, I believe, 2017 or 18.
Yeah.
That was the closest thing to a Japanese Godzilla film that has come out of an American studio. And of course, we've abandoned the whole stunt actor in suit special effects for modern CGI. But I think that film kept the proper tone of the classic films. So yeah, I do enjoy the modern ones. I enjoyed Godzilla versus Kong. It was just a big dumb movie, which every monster fan wishes there'd be less humans in the film and more monsters, but of course, for storytelling purposes, you need the humans in there. But yeah, I enjoy them.
Yeah, I mean, I have seen them. They didn't set my world alight, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
I did prefer the original Godzilla movies because you knew what to expect. You knew what they were going to be about and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I mean, what about the Godzilla? Was it the 1997 version with Matthew?
1998. We don't speak of that
1998. One. You don't? No, you
yeah,
weren't a fan.
we don't speak of that.
No,
that was terrible.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll tell you though, I did enjoy the creature design from that film, but everything else about that film, the writing, the direction, the acting was all terrible, absolutely terrible. But to make lemonade out of lemons, there was an animated series on Fox Kids that followed that film. That was a sequel to that film. That series was outstanding. Yeah, that series was excellent.
Wow.
So they did redeem the movie with the animated series, but the movie itself was hot garbage.
Wow. I didn't realize they did an animated series straight after that.
Yeah.
The only animated series I know was Godzilla and Godzuki. And that was back in the 80s.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I didn't realize they did a movie for that. So with all the toy lines like Transformers, He-Man and stuff like that, G.I. Joe, they've all been sort of they've had movies. They've also got movies. And what do you think of the movies, the Transformers, the G.I. Joe movies, the Masters of the Universe with Dolph Lundgren and stuff like that? I mean, I'm assuming you prefer the original, the Saturday morning cartoons.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, Hollywood always needs to change everything about the property in order to make a movie. I mean, the first Transformers movie wasn't bad, and then they just got progressively worse after that. Due in large part to Michael Bay continuing on with the series. He's got sort of the sense of humor of a 13-year-old, where you have to have, show the hot girls and then, show a guy getting kicked in the balls, and that's funny, and it's just it doesn't really honor the original series, which was even though it was made to sell cartoons, to sell toys, the cartoon was trying to build some sort of a mythology, and those movies just don't respect what came before them. I think it's possible to do. I think it's possible to do a modern Hollywood film and still respect the source material. I mean, they've done 3 G.I. Joe films so far, which none of them resemble the source material. So I don't know what they're thinking. They're just throwing millions of dollars at these projects in order to fail. I don't understand it.
When I see things like that, it's like with the Masters of the Universe. I mean, I loved the cartoon as a kid, but then when I saw the film with Dolph Lundgren, and it wasn't even set on Eternia, it was set on, and I just I was obviously a lot younger back then, and I was like, what have they done? And I even understood then that it wasn't right. It wasn't great. I know there's people that like it, and then that's fair enough. I mean, it is after all about opinions, but I was just thinking, why is this not like the original source? Why is it? And then I got excited because they were doing Transformers, and again, the first one was okay. I felt it could have been better. I felt that the Transformers and the Decepticons could have resembled what they looked like in the cartoon.
Right, exactly.
They missed. They skipped it there. They dropped the ball there, and then I really can't remember the films after that, to be honest with you, in the Transformers, except Bumblebee. I have to say, Bumblebee was for my, out of all the films, the best one. That was set in the 80s. He was a Volkswagen Beetle, and he resembled the character, and even the Autobots at the beginning of the movie, when you see them and stuff like that, they resemble what they look like in the 80s. How difficult is it for Hollywood to turn around and say, let's just take this, we've got the foundation here, let's use that and build something good? I mean, like you say, why have they got to keep changing it?
Right. Yeah. I feel the same way about the DC movies that have come out in the past 5 or 6 years. They had a perfect template from the animated universe that started with Batman the animated series, and went all the way through to Justice League Unlimited. That was the perfect template for how to build a DC universe in another media besides comics. And they just, I don't know, they screw that up too.
Well, the only things, as you probably well know, the only DC franchise that I like is the Batman franchise. I do like Batman. I love the Dark Knight. The Dark Knight trilogy, I thought Nolan done a fantastic job. I've got to say that's probably one of my favorite trilogies. I mean, the characters I thought were believable. They were great, and I thought that would have been a great way to start your DC universe. And then they went and changed it, and they got I can't remember his name.
Affleck.
Ben Affleck.
Ben Affleck.
I felt sorry for him because he was taken over from Christian Bale, and Christian Bale I thought done a fantastic job. And I just can't. I a long way to go before they are in the same sort of like ballpark as Marvel with their cinematic universe. I mean, you're a big Marvel fan. I'm assuming because you've got the figures and you like the superheroes and stuff like that, and the comics. What do you make of the Marvel cinematic universe? Have they done a good job in your eyes, or?
They started off on the right path with Iron Man. Yeah. They got very ambitious building the Infinity Saga. I think that ended okay. I think that they did a good job with that. Since Endgame, they've gone a bit downhill. They've sort of lost focus. They're as you know, they're going very woke at Disney, and they're inserting different situations and different characters in to put forth a certain message. And I think they've lost sight of the source material. If you lose too much sight of the source material, the original comics, if you get further away from that, I think the worse the project is, personally.
Yeah. I mean,
there's a reason why these characters have been around for 50, 60, 75 years, and it's the comic books. It starts with the comics. So if you want them to stay around for another 50, 60, 75 years, go back, look at what was successful then, and just carry it forward. You can modernize it, but you don't have to make wholesale changes to it.
No, definitely. I would agree with you on that for sure. I mean, it was funny. I was having a conversation the other day because we got the She-Hulk out, and I've seen the third episode. It wasn't the best, I got to say. I preferred the first two. But my mum was like, well, why can't she take on her own persona? Why have you got to have a She-Hulk? You've already got a Hulk. Why do you have to have a female version? I said, Mum,
exactly.
This was a comic book character way back when. So it's not like it's a new thing. They're just bringing it to the forefront. And it's the same with Ms. Marvel. I didn't realize there was a character in the Marvel universe called Ms. Marvel. And then I did a bit of research, and yes, there was a character. And I thought, okay, I don't have an issue with that. Not a problem. But when they do the series, again, keep it to the source material. Keep it to where she got her powers from, not make up some mystic sort of what they've done with it. I mean, I don't know. I don't get it. I can't get my head around it. And it's a shame because what they did with those first, I think it was 22 movies in the Marvel universe, I thought was brilliant. Everything sort of worked together and come together, and it
it was revolutionary.
Yeah, but when you look at the Star Wars franchise, you've got 9 movies, and they couldn't gel, and you had a decent foundation with the original trilogy, and that they couldn't gel it together with just 9 movies, and I don't get that. I don't get that. Anyway, moving on. Next question. What is your most bizarre part of your collection? The most bizarre figure that you've got? What would you say that would be?
Oh, boy. I've got a lot of bizarre stuff. I really love obscure toys, so I've got a lot of weird stuff in here.
Yeah.
It's probably I did a video on the Dinonautas. So there's a company in Brazil that made toys that homage the 1980s series Dino Saucers. And it was about a group. It was about a group of intelligent dinosaurs that came from outer space, 2 warring factions, basically just a flip on the Transformers idea. But back in the 80s, the Dino Saucers toys were only sold in Brazil. They're very hard to get these days, very expensive. So this company called Show Toys in Brazil created sort of an homage to the original Dino Saucer toys. So I bought a few of those, and they're just very simple vinyl figures with 5 points of articulation, but I like them. So those are
Yeah.
probably the weirdest things I have in here right now that people would look at and not know what the hell they were.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some of your reviews, and I think, wow, I mean, you do practically collect everything and anything, and I think that's great. You just, I mean, you must really be into every kind of toy line. I mean, what is your favorite toy line company? You know, Hasbro, Mego, I to name but a few.
I mean, back in the old days, it would have been Mego and Kenner. Currently, I probably don't have a favorite because they've all got different problems. I mean, I probably buy the most stuff from Hasbro because of Marvel Legends, and I'm still right now buying a few Transformers here and there. So right now, I guess it's Hasbro. I think everyone has kind of a love-hate relationship with Hasbro right now. Like with the Star Wars Retro Collection, okay, I can understand when you're doing reproductions of the original figures. You want to weather the cards and put the giant sticker on them so no one mistakes them for vintage. Okay, what's the excuse with the Mandalorian figures? They're brand new. You don't need to weather the cards. You don't need that big stupid sticker on them. They're just Hasbro is the bane of mint-on card collectors right now, especially now with the plastic-free packaging nonsense.
Yeah.
You're a toy company. You produce millions of pounds of plastic each year. I don't think that little plastic window is going to make much of a difference. But okay, you can pat yourself on the back on Twitter. That's fine.
Well, listen. I mean, my latest video, I've commended Hasbro in my latest video because I think what they have done with this certain wave of figures, I think they've done a bloody good job, and I think it's more the card than the figures themselves, because we know that every exclusive is either a reissue, a repaint of some form or another. So I will give Hasbro credit where credit is due, but on the other hand, they do produce some utter shite.
Right.
They really do, and I don't know. I can't get my head around their thinking and why they think certain things would, you know, why they make certain decisions. I really cannot get my head around it.
Yeah.
But there you go. So, moving on to the next question. With all the toy lines that you collect, which one would be the one that you stick with if you could only collect one line? So you had all the choice of all the toy lines. Here we go. What's this? Transformers.
Transformers.
Yeah.
I would have to pick Transformers. I mean, like I said, back in the 80s, I was a completist. And then really, up until the year 2001, I had a near complete Transformers collection through Generation 2, the Beast era, Robots in Disguise, which was car robots in Japan. I had every US release Transformer up to that point, and quite a good number of the Japanese and some of the European releases as well. So Transformers has always been very dear to me. They're robots. They're also cars and jets and dinosaurs and monsters and all kinds of things. It's like every other toy line jammed into one. And I know a lot of people don't like them. I do. I really like Transformers. And it begins with the original mythology too. I really enjoyed the mythology they established in the originally animated series.
Yeah. I mean, for me, G1 is where it's at with Transformers. I've got a couple of the re-releases in the box still. I've not opened them up, so I've got Optimus Prime, obviously because he's the leader of the Autobots. I've got Bumblebee, Brawn, and I think Cliff Jumper, and I've also got Jazz. Now, the reason I got Jazz was because he was the first Transformer that I ever had. I've told the story before, but I don't care. I'm going to tell it again anyway because I like it. So, and it's my series, so I can talk what I want about anyway. But yeah, so my nan went to America because we've got family in America, and she come back a couple of weeks later, and she gave me this car, and I was like, okay, well, brilliant. And I got it out and looked, and it could transform, and it's the first time I'd ever seen it. And back in those days, the US would get TV series before the UK. They would get the toy lines before the UK. So to have this back in my hands before anybody, I guess, well, I wouldn't say anybody, but most people in the UK got it. I was like, wow, flabbergasted, brilliant. And I think that was the only Transformer that I ever had. I watched the cartoons, but I never got past G1. So I stuck with G1, but I didn't realize that they did a Generation 2, then they did the Beast Wars. So there's so much that I sort of like missed out on Transformers wise. And so when I watched the War for Cybertron, it kind of threw me a little bit because I understood who these people were in the first two series, but then the third one with the Beast Wars and stuff like that. Were the Beast Wars, were the Beast ones in the third one?
Yes.
Kingdom.
Yeah, Kingdom.
Yeah. I didn't know who they were. I was totally lost. It was all new to me, and I was like, okay, wow. And then people are saying you've got to watch Beast Wars and stuff like that. I still haven't got around to watching it. So, I mean, did you like the War for Cybertron trilogy? What did you think of that as an animated series? You didn't?
No.
Why is that?
No, I thought it was a bit slow, a bit boring. I thought the voice acting was a bit flat. So yeah, and I, having watched the original, all the original cartoons, the Generation 1, Beast Wars, which was brilliant back in the day. The CGI is a little bit wonky by today's standards, but Beast Wars was really well voiced, and it was well written, and it was a great 3-season story arc that really fleshed out a small cast of characters. So yeah, what they did with the War for Cybertron Kingdom, they kind of jammed a couple of seasons worth of Beast Wars stories into a few episodes, and having seen the original just didn't work for me.
Okay, well that's the thing. I'd never seen the original, so obviously I need to go back and see the original. So, but I didn't mind War for Cybertron. I thought the animation was good. I did enjoy the animation. That wasn't too bad. I find it very difficult now to go back and watch things like the original Transformers and I guess G.I. Joe and the Master of the Universe, He-Man, stuff like that, because I do kind of think it's very cheesy now. But then I've got to understand that when I watched it, I mean, even Star Wars. I mean, Star Wars, the original one was very cheesy. There's a lot of cheesy lines in it and stuff like that. So, but for nostalgia and for growing up as a kid, they were the cartoons to watch for sure. Definitely. So with your Transformers, what is the closest line to the original G1 Transformers? I mean, I think I've asked you this question before. I'm not too sure.
Well, they've been doing sort of updates and remakes of the Generation 1 characters for quite some time now. It started off with a series called Classics, which transitioned to Universe, and now the all-encompassing banner is Generations. So all these War for Cybertron things and what they're doing now is the series called Legacy. That all goes under the Generations banner. So they've been sort of remaking the Generation 1 characters for about 10 years now.
Wow. So that's the closest. I mean, do they still do the re-releases of the original boxes and the original Transformers? Is it Takara?
I haven't seen, Takara, how we want to say it, and Hasbro both have done them. I haven't seen reissues in probably a year and a half. In the U.S., they were exclusive to Walmart. So the last ones I got at Walmart were Blaster, the Autobot radio, and Astro Train and Soundwave. But since then, I haven't seen any other reissues come out. So that they may have been put on the back burner for now. I'm not sure what they're doing in Japan. I haven't really followed the Japanese releases all that closely the past few years, but it's possible they are doing releases over there. I'm not sure.
Okay, fair dues. I mean, I've got a few of the RED Transformers. Now, I don't mind those. They don't transform. That's okay. I quite like them displayed as a robot. But the scaling bothers me because they're all 6-inch figures, even Bumblebee, and that's a shame because Bumblebee was smaller. So when you put them together, he doesn't look right because he's the same height as Megatron and Optimus Prime, and that's the only bugbear for me, I think, with that series. But never mind. Anyway, 2 more questions. The hour is almost upon us. What gives you that toy collecting buzz?
it's always been the next thing. So even though I have all this stuff, there are things that I know that are coming that I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to. Even back in the 80s, when I would get the first new Transformer of that series every year, first thing I would do is break out the catalog and see what was coming. So I always love looking forward to the next thing. That's what keeps me interested in this, is knowing that something
Yeah.
new is coming, something different is coming that I'm going to want. And if those new releases ever dry up, then I'll just look backwards to the past 50 years and maybe get some older stuff that I sold off before or things I never had. So it's always, what am I going to add next to this collection? That keeps me interested.
Awesome. Awesome. So are you one for pre-orders, or do you prefer going out and getting stuff from the store?
I will use pre-orders to hedge my bets. So if Big Bad Toy Store puts things up for pre-order, Transformers, Marvel Legends, whatever, I'll put them in my pre-order queue. If I find them in Walmart or something ahead of time, then I'll grab it there, cancel the pre-order. But I prefer to buy things in store. That's what I loved
Yeah.
about the recent Superpowers line that McFarlane put out. Is
Okay.
there was no pre-order, there was no Kickstarter, there was no big Comic-Con announcement. It's just he made the toys and he released the toys, and we started finding them in the stores and saying, "What the hell are these? Where did these come from?" So it was like back in the '80s when you'd walk into a Toys R Us and see something new
Yeah.
for the first time. You got that
Yeah.
feeling of, "Wow, where did this come from? We didn't hear about this." So that you know that's something you don't see much anymore with the current way the toy industry is run, where you have to announce something in a live stream or at a Comic-Con or at a panel somewhere, and then you have to put it up for pre-order. Then you have to pre-order it and wait 6 months or to a year or more to get the toy.
Yeah.
That kind of sucks the fun out of collecting a little bit. I
I
prefer in the old days going to Toys R Us and just seeing a whole
Oh
wall of
yeah.
new toys and saying, "Wow, yeah,
Well, we haven't we don't have Toys R Us over anymore. Unfortunately, that closed down. And that was a real shame. So we've got a couple of
yeah,
toy stores and stuff like that, Entertainer and Smiths. But I remember, when we had Return of the Jedi come out, or you had the prequels come out, it was such a big thing, and the toy stores would make such a big thing of it, and the
hmm
aisle, both sides of the aisle, would be full of
right,
toys. You'd have a big banner saying Star Wars: The Phantom Menace, or whatever sort of
hmm
like GI Joe film, or whatever it was that come out at the time, and they'd always make a big thing of that. And I miss that, because that doesn't happen anymore in toy
right,
stores, and
yeah."
it's a shame. And yeah,
We have
sorry.
no big box toy stores left in the U.S. since Toys R Us closed. Child World was the first to go, then KB, and then eventually Toys R Us. So our only uh, options for retail right now are things like Walmart and Target, department stores. There are
Yeah,
no
yeah.
toy stores left, which is, it's terrible for kids growing up these days that they can't go to a toy store and just see nothing but toys. You have to, go to the few aisles in Walmart and hope that they've been stocked.
Yeah, I think it's such a crying shame. It really is. Like you, I miss that feeling of walking into a toy store and seeing aisles and aisles of toys, top to bottom, filled.
Hmm
You'd very rarely see any sort of like empty pegs. You wouldn't really
hmm
get any sort of like peg fillers, and you'd have every line that you could want. Back in the 80s, and I think the late 70s, probably early 80s to mid 80s to probably late 80s.
hmm
You were just spoiled for choice. I mean, I guess even with in the 90s, I guess with the Turtles and stuff like that.
hmm
But since then, since Toys R Us are gone, you walk into a toy shop now, and what they got on offer for the kids, it's. I mean, I wish that kids today could go back in time and have a look at those toy stores and see what it was all about.
Right,
Because you try and
right.
explain it to, like, I try and explain it to my niece and stuff like that,
Mm,
or my kids when they were growing up, and they did get it. It wasn't the
yeah.
same. It's all computer games and all that sort of stuff.
hmm
Anyway, the last question, Gojitron or Kyle, what does your collection mean to you?
My collection is a three-dimensional representation of everything that I've loved from comic books, movies, and television. Basically, it's a three-dimensional representation of good memories.
Awesome. That is a totally different answer. I like that. I like that. Yeah, that kind of stumped me. That has because I wasn't expecting that answer, but yeah, no, brilliant. Yeah, I get that. I get that. And I guess if it wasn't for the comic books and the TV series, we wouldn't have these toys, would we? So,
correct.
Yeah. Well, that was the last question. I do have one more question for you. Where can people find you? Social media platforms.
I am on YouTube and Instagram. Those are the only two I involve myself in, and you can find me as Gojitron. Just me. I didn't give my channel any sort of a name like to define it because there really is no defining it. My channel is just stuff that I like, and you can't put the stuff that I like in one box like Star Wars or Masters of the Universe or Transformers. I like everything. So I decided just to name my channel me, Gojitron. That's it.
Fair enough. So where does Gojitron come from?
Well, the Goji comes from Godzilla's original Japanese name, Gojira.
Okay.
So I took the Goji from that. And the Tron comes from, it was commonly used in Transformers, Megatron, Galvatron, Computron, things like that.
Okay.
I actually came up with the name Gojitron back in the late 90s when I first joined the internet and I was going on different Transformers message boards. And of course on message boards back in the 90s, early 2000s, you needed a silly screen name to identify yourself. People didn't use their real names. So the name I came up with, I was just mashing different words together. Like I came up with things like Godzilla Prime, which sounded stupid. So then I just mashed a bunch of different word fragments together and came up with Gojitron, and I've been using it ever since.
Wow. Fascinating. Awesome stuff. That has come to the end of the episode. If you do happen to stumble across Gojitron's channel, I do strongly suggest watching it. The man is a fountain of knowledge. Very, very well thought out channel. Very well thought out reviews. He does his homework, and it comes across in his reviews. Definitely. Yeah. So
I appreciate it, Tim.
No, honest to God, not a problem. I shall leave a description of your Instagram and your YouTube channel or a link to your YouTube and your Instagram in the link below. So, unfortunately, that has come to the end of the episode. Gojitron, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for taking part.
And likewise, Stu, thanks for having me on.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure, my friend. Thank you guys for watching. Take care, and we shall see you in the next video. Take care now. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.